Any artist out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star, and don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the videos, all on the record, dancing. Come to Death Row.
That moment hit like a gunshot in a crowded room. The crowd gasped. Puffy stared straight ahead, and hip-hop was never the same again. In the summer of 1995, two record labels stood at the top of the game, Death Row in the West and Bad Boy in the East. Behind them, two powerful men with outsized ambition and reputations to match, Suge Knight and Sean Puff Daddy Combs. Both were respected, both were feared, but only one would fire the first public shot. The beef between Death Row and Bad Boy wasn't just business. It wasn't just about artists or egos. It was about power, pride, and a growing storm that the media, the fans, and the artists themselves couldn't stop, even as it spiraled toward tragedy. By the time the smoke cleared, two of rap's greatest voices, Tupac Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G, were gone, and a generation was left asking how it got this far. This is the true story behind the East Coast-West Coast feud, how it started, who escalated it, and how it went from music to murder. You've heard the headlines. You know the legends. Now let's rewind to the very beginning, when Tupac and Biggie were still friends, before the diss tracks, before the funerals, because once the first domino fell, nothing in hip-hop would ever be the same, from friends to foes. Before the war, there was respect. Back in the early 1990s, Tupac Shakur and Christopher Wallace, better known as the Notorious B.I.G, weren't rivals, they were allies. Up-and-comers in a fast-growing industry, both were hungry, lyrical, and ambitious. In 1993, they met in New York through a mutual connection and hit it off immediately. Tupac welcomed Biggie into his circle, even inviting him to perform at shows and crash at his home when needed. At the time, Biggie was still unsigned, trying to find his lane in the game. Tupac was already rising fast. In one interview, Biggie called Tupac his dude and said he learned a lot from him, not just about music, but how to move in the business. Tupac, for his part, respected Biggie's pen and raw delivery. The chemistry was real, the admiration was mutual, but behind the scenes, the industry was shifting. On the West Coast, Suge Knight and Dr. Dre had formed Death Row Records in 1991. With the Chronic and Doggy Style, they turned the label into a multi-platinum powerhouse. Meanwhile, on the East Coast, Sean Puff Daddy Combs had launched Bad Boy Records in 1993, signing Biggie as his marquee artist. Both labels were on fire, and both bosses were building mini empires fueled by charisma, muscle, and money. Still, at this stage, there was no beef, only rising tension. The media loved to pit coasts against each other, but the artists themselves, many just wanted to win. What's tragic is that the connection between Tupac and Biggie could have been one of the greatest partnerships in hip-hop history. But as pressure mounted and paranoia grew, what started as a bond of mutual respect slowly cracked under the weight of fame, betrayal, and outside influence. By the time most fans realized something was wrong, the friendship had already fractured, and what happened next would turn that fracture into a full-blown war. Betrayal at Quad Studios. On the night of November 30th, 1994, everything changed. Tupac Shakur arrived at Quad Recording Studios in Midtown Manhattan, thinking he was about to lay down a verse for a friend. Instead, he walked into an ambush. As he entered the building's lobby, 3 armed men in army fatigues rushed him. Tupac was shot 5 times, once in the head, once in the hand, and multiple times in the groin and thigh. He was robbed of tens of thousands in jewelry, left bleeding on the floor. But the physical wounds weren't what pushed things over the edge. It was who he believed had set him up. Inside the studio that night, on another floor, were Biggie, Puffy, Lil Cease, and other members of the Bad Boy Camp. Tupac hadn't told many people he was coming, yet his attackers were already waiting. To Pac, the math was simple. Someone talked, someone close, and the fact that no one came down to check on him, that sealed it.
People think I just got out of jail and was like, just because I got shot on the East Coast, I'm like, fuck the East Coast.
Yeah,
no, half the rappers from the East Coast was there when I got shot. Nobody knew a thing. That's just like you coming to the hood and the police ask them what happened, and everybody's like, I don't know. You know they lying.
From his hospital bed and later prison cell, Tupac became consumed by betrayal. He didn't just suspect Bad Boy of being involved, he was convinced of it. He accused Biggie and Puffy of either setting him up or staying silent when they could have warned him. Puffy denied any involvement. Biggie said he had no idea Tupac was coming that night, but to Pac, their explanations rang hollow. And then, just months after the shooting, Biggie released Who Shot Ya, a dark, ominous track recorded before the incident but dropped at the worst possible time. To Tupac, it was like being spit on while still bleeding. He saw it not as a coincidence, but a taunt. The lines were drawn. Tupac was no longer angry. He was at war, and behind bars, he had plenty of time to plan his next move. And once he got out, he wouldn't just speak, he would strike. The Source Awards bombshell, 1995. By the summer of 1995, the tension between coasts had gone from whispers to growls. But no one expected the Source Awards to become ground zero. On August 3rd, hip-hop's biggest names gathered at Madison Square Garden. Nominees included Dr. Dre, Biggie, Nas, Snoop, and more. But when Suge Knight walked on stage to accept an award for Death Row, he didn't give thanks. He gave warning.
Any artists out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star and don't want to have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the video, all on the record, dancing, come to Death Row.
The message was aimed straight at Puff Daddy, whose flashy presence in his artists' videos had become a trademark, and, in Suge's eyes, a weakness. The room turned ice cold. Puffy sat silent. Tension thickened with every breath. Then came Snoop Dogg, already irritated that Dr. Dre was getting booed despite the success of The Chronic. Snoop grabbed the mic and let loose.
You got no love for Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and Death Row? Y'all don't love us? Y'all don't love us? Well, let it be known then. We know y'all East Coast. We know we at East Coast and
The crowd erupted. Cheers, boos, chaos. It didn't matter what came next. The damage was done. Moments later, Puffy finally addressed the crowd in his own way.
I'm the executive producer that a comment was made about a little bit earlier. But check this out. Contrary to what other people may feel, I would like to say that I'm very proud of Dr. Dre, of Death Row, and Suge Knight for their accomplishments. And all this East and West that needs to stop.
It was a call for loyalty, maybe even unity, but to many, it felt like a shot back. After the show, things got even darker. In Atlanta, just weeks later, a shooting outside a nightclub left Jake Robles, a close friend of Suge Knight, fatally wounded. Rumors swirled that the shooter had ties to Bad Boy. Suge reportedly blamed Puffy's crew, though no one was ever charged. At this point, it was no longer about music. It was personal. It was coast versus coast. Pride versus pride. And Suge Knight wasn't done playing chess. His next move? One that would flip the industry on its head and bring Tupac back into the picture with a vengeance. Death Row's new weapon, Tupac. In October 1995, while Tupac Shakur sat behind bars at Clinton Correctional Facility in upstate New York, a visitor arrived with an offer that would reshape music history. That man was Suge Knight. Pac was angry, broke, and isolated. He felt betrayed by friends, abandoned by labels, and forgotten by the industry he helped build. Suge didn't show up to offer sympathy. He came with a contract. In exchange for $1.4 million in bail money, Tupac would become the newest and most explosive artist on Death Row Records, and he signed. In that prison visiting room, Suge didn't just free Tupac, he weaponized him.
And what I heard is Suge got him out of jail with his own money, with Pac's own royalties. That's how he got him out.
Tupac didn't know that the money came from his own future royalties, but at the time, he didn't care. He wanted out, and Suge gave him that. Within hours of his release, Tupac was already in Los Angeles, riding beside Suge, wearing a Death Row chain, and stepping into a war he fully intended to finish. He immediately started recording what would become All Eyes on Me, throwing down verses like he had something to prove, and he did, to his enemies, to his doubters, to the people who left him behind. But more than anything, Tupac was loyal. Suge had given him freedom. That meant everything, and Suge knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't just sign an artist, he unleashed a soldier, one with charisma, pain, and a microphone that cut like a knife. Together, Tupac and Suge moved like kings, arriving at clubs with entourages, flashing cash, dominating headlines. To the public, it looked like family. To industry insiders, it looked like Death Row had a new enforcer, and as the walls closed in on the East Coast, Suge knew he had found the perfect man to lead his charge, because this wasn't just business anymore. It was a crusade. War on wax. By mid-1996, Tupac wasn't just back, he was everywhere. He dropped All Eyes on Me in February, the first double album in hip-hop history, going 5 times platinum in less than 6 months. But Tupac wasn't just releasing music, he was issuing warnings. And then came the nuclear bomb, Hit 'Em Up. Released in June 1996, it was more than a diss track, it was a declaration of war. Tupac went after Biggie, Puffy, Mobb Deep, Chino XL, and he didn't hold back. He taunted Biggie about Faith Evans, threatened violence, and called out names with a venom the industry had never seen. It was the most personal, aggressive, and shocking diss track the genre had ever heard. The backlash was immediate. Even longtime fans were split. Some called it lyrical genius, others said he crossed a line. Meanwhile, Biggie stayed mostly silent, at least publicly, but behind the scenes, tensions were boiling. In New York, Thaw Dog Pound's video shoot for New York, New York was reportedly shot at. Out west, Capone N. Noriega and Tragedy Gaddafi dropped LALA in response. What had started as a personal beef was now a full-scale regional war playing out in lyrics, interviews, and on the streets. The media fanned the flames. Magazines ran headlines like East versus West West, Who's Winning? Radio DJs hyped up the rivalry, often choosing sides. And the fans? They ate it up. But no one seemed to realize that the war of words was getting dangerously close to real-life consequences. This wasn't just marketing. This wasn't just rap. For Tupac, it was justice. For Biggie, it was survival. And for everyone watching, it was a ticking time bomb. The Vegas tragedy, September 7th, 1996, Las Vegas. The night started with champagne and celebration. It ended in blood and sirens. Tupac was in town for the Mike Tyson versus. Bruce Seldon fight at the MGM Grand. He arrived in style. Versace silk, gold chains, rolling deep with Suge Knight and a Death Row entourage. But inside the hotel lobby, fate intervened. A Death Row affiliate spotted Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, a known Southside Crip, who'd allegedly snatched a Death Row chain weeks earlier. Tupac didn't hesitate. Security footage shows him throwing the first punch. The entire crew jumps in. Kicks, stomps, chaos. That beating would be the spark that lit the fuse. A few hours later, as Tupac and Suge drove down Flamingo Road in a black BMW, a white Cadillac pulled up beside them at a red light. Gunfire erupted. Tupac was hit 4 times, once in the chest, pelvis, and hand. 1 bullet punctured a lung. Suge was grazed in the head but survived. He hit the gas and tried to escape, but it was too late. Tupac was rushed to University Medical Center. He spent 6 days on life support. Fans gathered outside the hospital, news stations circled, rappers went silent. Then on September 13th, 1996, Tupac Amaru Shakur died. He was just 25 years old.
But when he died, I was just like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? It kind of took me by. Even though we was going through our drama, I would never wish death on nobody, you know what I'm saying? Because ain't no coming back from that.
Even Biggie, his fiercest rival, was stunned. His voice, usually smooth and cocky, now sounded heavy, wrecked. The hip-hop world was in shock. A legend was gone, a line had been crossed, and many began to wonder if things would ever return to normal. But the truth was, it wasn't over yet, because just 6 months later, another bullet would silence another voice. And this time, the East Coast would feel the loss. Aftershock in LA, March 8, 1997, Los Angeles. Christopher Wallace, known to the world as the Notorious B.I.G, was back in the West. It was a bold move. Just 6 months after Tupac's murder, tensions were still raw, rumors swirled, death threats floated. Many warned Biggie to stay out of LA, but he came anyway, insisting that it was time to move past the feud, to promote his upcoming album, Life After Death, to show he wasn't afraid. He gave interviews saying he had no beef with Tupac, that he respected him, that the media blew things out of proportion. He even praised All Eyes on Me. It seemed like a man trying to heal wounds, but fate had other plans. On the night of March 8th, Biggie attended a Vibe magazine after-party in Mid-Wilshire, Los Angeles. It was glitz, music, and flashbulbs. Puffy was there, Lil Cease, the Bad Boy family. After midnight, Biggie left the party in his GMC Suburban. At a red light on Wilshire Boulevard, a Chevy Impala pulled up beside him. A lone gunman opened fire. Biggie was struck 4 times. 1 bullet entered his hip and tore through his heart. He was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center and pronounced dead at 1:15 a.m., just 24 years old.
The violence, it has to stop. I mean, this is one of my closest friends, and it's still one of my closest friends, and also my biggest artist.
Puffy's voice cracked. He was broken, shocked, and scared. He wasn't the only one. Two of the biggest rappers in the world, gone. Both murdered in drive-by shootings, both unsolved. Two coasts, two kings, two funerals. The dream of hip-hop domination had turned into a nightmare. And with Biggie's death, the feud that had defined an era came to a crashing, tragic end. But the questions were just beginning. Aftermath, unsolved and unresolved. The bullet stopped, but the storm kept raging. 2 murders, no arrests, no closure. The killings of Tupac Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G. didn't just shock the world. They shattered trust in the police, in the music industry, and in the idea that rap beefs were ever just lyrical. Immediately, the theories exploded. On the West Coast, many pointed to Orlando Anderson as Tupac's shooter, the same man Tupac attacked in the MGM Grand. He denied involvement. He was never charged. In 1998, he was killed in a separate gang shooting. That lead died with him. On the East Coast, things got even murkier. Some claim Biggie's death was retaliation, orchestrated from behind bars by Suge Knight, who was in jail on a parole violation at the time. The theory? Suge hired a Bloods gang member, Wardell Poochie Faust, to execute the hit.
Biggie was killed by an associate of Suge Knight's. He hired a guy named Poochie to track down Biggie at the Peterson Auto Museum in March of 1997 and wait for him outside, and he pulled alongside and shot into the side of the car and killing Biggie.
Detective Greg Kading, who led a joint task force on the Biggie case, laid out his case in the murder rap documentary and book. But without formal charges, the theory remained just that, a theory. Meanwhile, another scandal began to unfold inside the LAPD. Officers were accused of being tied to death row, corruption, cover-ups, missing evidence. Suddenly, it wasn't just a rap feud, it was a criminal maze. And in the middle of it all, the families grieved. In 1999, at the MTV Music Awards, Afeni Shakur and Valletta Wallace, the mothers of Tupac and Biggie, embraced on stage, sending a powerful message. Forgiveness is possible, even when justice isn't. But for fans and for hip-hop, the loss left a void that couldn't be filled. 2 legends gone, no one held accountable, and an entire culture forced to ask, how did we let this happen? And why, after all these years? Do we still not have answers? Legacy of the feud. When the smoke cleared, hip-hop was left staring at 2 empty thrones. Tupac Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G. weren't just rappers. They were voices of their generation. And in less than a year, both were gone. The East Coast-West Coast feud, once dismissed by some as media hype or clever marketing, had become a cautionary tale written in real blood. For a while, the culture paused. Artists stopped throwing shots. Labels went quiet. No one wanted to be next. But as time passed, the industry began to look inward. Contracts were re-examined. Street affiliations were downplayed. The bravado didn't vanish, but the recklessness was dialed back. It had to be. And those who lived through it were left with regrets. Snoop, who once rode with both Tupac and Suge, later admitted that he and Pac weren't speaking when Tupac died. He said they could have made peace. Should have. Puff Daddy, too, would go on to honor Tupac's legacy, even naming him as one of the greatest of all time during interviews and tributes. The feud might have been real, but the pain after, that was even more real. Meanwhile, new generations of artists, Kendrick, J. Cole, Drake, Nipsey Hussle, rose up without the need to claim a coast. Collabs replaced diss tracks. Unity became the new currency, but the ghosts of the past still hover. Tupac's influence lives on through his poetry, his activism, his interviews that still go viral today. Biggie's voice still echoes in speakers around the world. Smooth, deliberate, unmistakable. Together, they changed the game, but they also paid the price. And while the industry has learned to move forward, the lesson remains etched in history. Rap beefs might start on wax, but they don't always end there. So here's the question for you. Do you think this feud could have ended differently? Or was tragedy inevitable the moment loyalty became lethal? No winners, only warnings. It started as competition. 2 labels, 2 coasts, 2 young kings with unmatched talent. But what began as a power struggle between Death Row and Bad Boy quickly turned into a full-blown cultural collision with real bodies left behind. Suge Knight fired the first public shot. Tupac turned pain into fury. Biggie responded with silence and then brilliance. And Puffy? He tried to steer through a storm that had already broken wide open. But when the music faded and the headlines went quiet, two mothers were left without sons, and the world was left asking, why? There were no winners in the East Coast-West Coast feud, only lost lives, broken alliances, and a generation forced to reckon with the cost of ego, loyalty, and unchecked violence. Still, out of the ashes, hip-hop evolved, artists learned, the culture shifted, the industry took a long, hard look at itself. And today, rappers from Brooklyn to Compton to Atlanta collaborate freely because they know what happens when unity is lost. Tupac once said, "I'm not saying I'm gonna change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world." Biggie once said, "Damn right I like the life I live, cause I went from negative to positive." Their lives ended too soon, but their legacies never will. So now we ask you, who was really responsible for how far things went? Was it pride, the media, or the men in the middle? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story made you think, made you feel something, or helped you see the past more clearly, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more true stories that go deeper than headlines ever do. Because the music never stopped, but neither did the questions.